It's like right at your breastises.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're
The Ghouls Next Door. Talk about that spooky stuff. Remember that?
We say it for 106 times.
Yeah.
You're welcome,
Yes.
world. I don't know which one to look at, world.
Yeah, you're welcome all the
Worlds.
worlds. I like to think that in all the universes that we could possibly be in, we found each other. And we're making the ghouls in some way.
In every single one.
Yes. In
Better
every single
be.
one. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to find that one. Let's me beat them up.
Murder.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you don't gather from what I just said in the words, is that for our what episode, we're talking about parallel universes.
Yeah, the multiples of us that exist.
The multiverse.
So many multiples. It's just like endless.
Yeah.
Non-whispering. It's endless.
It's endless, yes.
All the universes. Or we just exist in minute differences and different shirt colors, or I don't know, we wore our hair differently that day, or we didn't get on the bus on time, so we weren't late for work, or I don't know.
Or we got on the train, so we made it home early, and then you can see that your boyfriend's cheating on you, and then you change your whole life.
Is that just what happened?
No, that's Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay.
Sliding doors. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. No, but there could be minute differences. Like maybe we didn't go on the Tribbles episode and we never met the loves of our lives.
That's the worst universe
That's the
ever.
worst universe. Maybe you didn't put out a Craigslist ad.
Okay, but alright, hypothetically speaking, if the universe exists and us going on to the Tribbles that one time is what triggered the coronavirus.
Oh no!
I don't know if there's any science to it, but what if?
Like it was a butterfly effect?
Yeah.
Like maybe the first time we didn't, but then we knew, and so we went back in time and we changed it. That's next episode. All I'm saying is that, Kat, I'm just a Berenstein girl living in a Berenstein world.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be for...
Is there ever one where it's Berenstein?
Yeah, that's the Steen. Berenstein. But now, in this world, it's Berenstain.
I hate that.
Right? It's not real. Like, that's not what I remember.
It was the Berenstein Bears, or Berenstein Bears.
Right? It wasn't
either.
apparently.
It was one of those two.
Apparently, it was not. Apparently, that's a lie.
Well,
so
my parents couldn't read.
Yeah.
So they read it wrong.
No, I don't know.
And that's just how I understand.
Yeah, the Mandela effect, or one of the most popular parallel universe theories out there, is like my favorite conspiracy theory, and we definitely will have to do a whole episode on it because it's wild. I think it's crazy.
What's it called?
The Mandela effect.
Oh, because of Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, it's that there's people who remember him dying earlier than he had. And that's one of the instances we say indicate that we're from a different universe. And at some point they clashed, but there's all these little differences.
Am I from a different universe? Because whenever I mention the PBS kids show Sagwa, no one knows what I'm talking about.
Sagwa? That's like how I felt about Allegra's Window. No one watched Allegra's Window.
I don't know what that is.
See, maybe you're not my cat.
Facts. Yeah, facts. We tell you facts. All the facts.
Hi, friends. How are we tonight? I'm 100% Cat, the cat that you've known and loved for 106 episodes. So, That's a fun fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I don't know why you felt like you had to point it out, but I agree.
I just feel like if it wasn't me, I would be acting weird about it. So
And that's not what's happening now.
right.
So,
Yeah, it's fine. You know, whatever. We're doing the ghouls. We do the ghouls all the time. And I'm here to talk to you about parallel universes. The thing, like, we don't know if it's real. We
yeah.
don't know.
yeah.
Do we? Do they exist? That's the question we want to answer.
I don't know.
And, you know, before I get into my section, I would like to thank the physicist, Brian Greene. You don't know him probably unless you're really into physics.
I know a Brian Greene, but it's not this one.
I was not really into physics before this episode. I'm not either now, but I just want to say that, like, I learned a little bit.
That's
I'm going to
good.
relay that to you. So Brian Greene said,
Yes.
on an NPR special, it was Fresh Air, which I remember I used to listen to with my grandpa when
Terry
I was
Gross,
little in the
isn't it?
car. And also with our friend Will. But on Fresh Air,
They
this
always
is
talk like
titled-
this.
yeah, really breathy.
Yeah.
Just like pleasant.
This is what
fresh
news is.
air.
Yeah.
Well,
It's fresh.
it's fresh.
It's just like where you get here at the Ghouls. Fresh air.
You're welcome. So it's called A Physicist Explains Why Parallel Universes May Exist. Really just says
Concise.
everything that I'm going to say. So Brian, you know, my main man,
Yes.
says in a way that 9 hours of a workday cat can understand. He said words. It was the first thing I had read where I was like, oh, okay, that is easy to read.
Yeah.
That is not an entire article of science words
In numbers.
thrown at me that make no sense to me after a 9-hour workday.
Yeah.
This guy just told it how it was, super easy, and you're welcome. So he says, our universe might be really, really big, but finite, or it might be infinitely big. Both cases are possible. But if the latter is true, as in that they're infinitely big, so is this. There are only so many ways that matter can arrange itself within an infinite universe. Eventually, matter has to repeat itself and arrange itself in similar ways. So if the universe is infinitely large, it is also home to infinite parallel universes.
Makes sense.
So kind of like in our last episode, where it was like, it's possible, you know, maybe. We can't say it's yes or it's no.
Yeah.
This, they actually, like, have ways to test if it's possible or not. It's just kind of really complicated. Really complicated.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
I know
things.
you're my cat because you stumbled over words.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is my evidence.
This is like that theory where they're like, if you put like 100 monkeys in a room with a typewriter over like 1 million timelines or whatever, that eventually they'll write a Shakespeare tragedy, I think. Like it was like the odds are that at some point they'll all the words that were used would end up in the same sequence. Like if there's an infinite amount of possibilities,
Yeah.
then that could happen.
No, that checks out.
Is what I think.
I'm going to say yeah. So basically the idea is if it's finite, then, you know, we don't have multiple parallel universes because the universe can, like, stop at some point, potentially reverse.
Mm-hmm. Big crunch.
Yeah, the big crunch. Then you have the idea where it's like inflation is a thing, so it's expanding at a certain rate. It reaches a like plateau where it calms down for a minute, which is where we are now.
Yeah.
And then we'll hit a point where it rapidly goes expands, or I guess
deflates.
I guess you
crunches.
Right? Or inflate. That makes more sense. Where it rapidly inflates again.
Or deflates.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but that might not be right. I think what you said was right.
Gotcha.
So basically, if the universe is infinite, there's infinite possibilities and universes and versions of ourselves having varying differences that could be minimal or very largely impactful upon us. reality is a little more interesting in that scenario. Because it's like, yeah, it's likely that we're never going to interact with that other version of us.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Like,
Yeah.
There's a possibility that an event could trigger such an action of universes interacting with each other according to science.
Like the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong timeline.
Oops.
It's the worst timeline.
Yeah, and then like your boyfriend who loved you doesn't love you anymore, and it's sad.
Okay,
So
I guess this isn't the worst.
yeah, right. We have nice ones. It's fine. We didn't. we
didn't regret these ones. We didn't murder the bad version of us, so we can have the good boyfriends.
Ones.
Yeah.
We murdered nice version of us to get nice boyfriends.
No.
No.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. So this idea is that they won't touch each other. Instead, they just exist parallel to each other. And he also explains that, like, in the fact that they would be infinitely expanding, if you take, like, that there is only a certain amount of matter that can exist within that space, like types of matter. So essentially, if it's finite and there's other ones that exist outside of it, the matter that they have could be completely different because it's not touching ours. But if the idea is that it's infinite, it goes on forever, there's only, and the laws of physics as they are in this universe exist as they do, that it would have to create copies. And like, so he uses an example of a deck of cards where if you had one deck of cards and that was all the matter that you could use in the universe, and you had to shuffle them into various patterns to get whatever you're going to get for the universe, eventually the amount of times that you do that, you would get one that was the same as one before.
Yeah. Or
maybe with
similar.
one card
Different, yeah.
slightly different.
Yeah.
Which is one decision that was made an opposite way.
Yeah.
Or a coin flip. That
Yes.
was yes instead of no. I don't know. So it's interesting how this develops, because if you think about that and we add in math and science, I'm trying to like mush it all together. A lot of the theories around like quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Sounds
They
right.
contradict with each other. So essentially, the theory of quantum physics is about things that are really small. Because quantum is talking about like the atom, and atoms are small.
Mm-hmm.
Quantum mechanics deals with small things and totally makes sense in describing how small things operate. Where like the other one is about big things and is basically Einstein and Apple. I'm not a scientist. We say this every episode. I'm a historian. So the idea is there's like many possibilities to whether your universe can exist.
Yeah.
There's the idea, so if we had infinite universes, we have bubble universes. I got this from space.com, which I thought was a fun
That seems real.
website, which is basically the theory of multiple universes that come to internal inflation. So based on research from Tufts University cosmetologist Alexander Willington, when looking at space-time as a whole, some areas of space stop inflating, like the Big Bang inflated our own universe, while others keep getting larger. So if we were to picture a universe as a bubble, it's sitting in a network of bubble universes in space. What's interesting about the theory is that the universes would have different laws of physics. So that was the one I was describing. So they exist separate from each other. So the rules within them, that's kind of like Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Where when he goes to a different universe, like everything's all wacky.
Yeah.
They're like squid people now.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Or like there's like not even really even there, and there's just a lot of other stuff happening. So it's like there's still maybe somewhat similarities, but the laws that define what
How
can
it works.
exist are totally different in that theory. There's daughter universes, which I thought was really interesting because I feel like that's what we see a lot, even though that's not necessarily what we hear at Coin does.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically multiple universes can follow the theory of quantum mechanics, how subatomic particles behave, as part of the daughter universe theory. If you follow the laws of probability, it suggests that for every outcome that you come up from one of your decisions, there would be a range of universes, each of which saw an outcome for another version of that. So it's like every time you make a choice, Mr. Nobody, you get to see what would have happened under that specific choice. And then that would create a whole new universe for every decision that has ever existed. And basically, one universe you got that job that you wanted, you took it. The other one you decided not to go.
Mm-hmm.
You
And so
just
it's
both
two.
exist and you see what life happens now.
Yeah.
There's mathematical universes, which is basically whichever one you reside in, the structure is something you can describe in a way that's completely independent of human baggage, which is a theory made by Max Tegmark, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He basically believes that there is a universe out there that can exist independently of me and would continue to exist even if there were no humans. So, kind of just plucks us out of the whole equation.
We don't even matter.
We don't matter now anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
And then parallel universes is actually a little bit more complicated, where it's essentially from what I understand of it is that we exist. It kind of ties into string theory, where there are two-dimensional disks that are all kind of tied together in this plane, and they are able to. They're like the same but slightly different. Is the understanding. It's like those are the different universes that can exist. And then it kind of, because of the particle configurations, the multiple universes would be limited to math numbers of certain amount of distinct possibilities. So we'd be able to like measure exactly what could exist out there. And that some are the exact same as us, some of them aren't, you know, but the idea is that they would be similar to us or just us a bunch of times forever.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I got. And then I guess what we'll see a lot in the films is this idea of Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
So it's a really complicated thing. I don't know if we have time.
No, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to give you a real nice, easy explanation of Schrodinger's cat. So essentially, this is something that went into quantum mechanics that was a way of understanding things, but the guy who made it, Schrodinger, presented this as like a total hypothetical scenario as a way to be like, it is so ridiculous that you think this thing could happen, which is specifically, it's a theory made by the Copenhagen interpretation, which essentially is explaining. It's all very complicated. I'm just going to read it to you and then it'll make sense, because it's called, the article that I read, A Simple Explanation of Schrodinger's Cat, the simplest that exists, the most simple. And I was like, thank God.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is confusing and I don't understand. So it was from astronomate.com.
Nice.
And I'm very thankful for this article, because otherwise I would not know.
I'm learning so much already.
So Schrodinger's cat experiment is basically a thought experiment, something you can't ever test. It's just like, woo,
Yeah.
what if?
Yeah.
We don't actually get to do it. We just get to imagine it, and that's fun.
Yeah.
In fact, we learned later, the team that like kind of thought it up, learned later, it's truly impossible to physically conduct Schrodinger's cat experiment, even if we wanted to. So you can't. It's forever just hypothetical.
Yeah.
So during the 1920s and 30s, a new scientific revolution was occurring. We realized an entire new realm existed in the smallest possible levels, quantum, so like the atom, and that the study of those things is quantum physics. So Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger. Erwin, I can read. Cat can read.
You can't.
So the idea of the experiment, this is what happens. First, a cat is placed inside a sealed box for 1 hour. Also inside the box are a container of radioactive material, a Geiger counter, which is the thing that detects radioactive particles, a hammer, and a container of deadly cyanide. Using the correct radioactive material allows a precisely 50-50 chance that within 1 hour, a single radioactive particle will be emitted. Basically, nothing about matter is certain until we observe it. That's what the Copenhagen interpretation says. So this process is known as the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics. In other words, it's simply looking at matter changes what it is. It changes what happens to it. It's kind of like the whole, like, so how I interpreted it is that, like, if I didn't tell you the vase was there, would you have knocked it over?
Yeah.
matter changes because we look at it, our presence in this viewing of matter will change what happens.
Yeah.
Or what would have happened.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean? Why does this matter? They give us 3 bullet points easily explaining that. After 1 hour in the experiment box, Schrodinger's cat stands a 50-50 chance of being dead and a 50-50 chance of being alive. But while the cat's in the box, it is both dead and alive simultaneously, according to
because
the
we haven't
Copenhagen
looked at it.
interpretation. Because we haven't looked at it. We have not looked at it and changed the matter within. Schrodinger's cat experiment was hypothetically used to show Schrodinger's disagreement with the Copenhagen interpretation for larger objects like a cat. So it's, if you're arguing, so remember I was saying quantum physics and the theory of relativity?
Yeah.
I'll find it one day. Look it up. There's a whole video.
Yeah.
Websites do it. But it was basically like some apply totally to small things. So like quantum physics totally makes sense for quantum physics.
Yeah.
But if you apply it to anything larger than quantum land,
like level, yeah,
then it doesn't work. Like you
check
can't,
out, yeah.
It doesn't check out for big things. So like,
so it's really funny because it's one of those things that like pop culture, just like modern thinking, like is wrong because he did it as a joke. Or not a joke, like it's not what it is. And so people take it to reinforce what Copenhagen said, but it just not. So that's funny.
Yeah, he was just like, it's so ridiculous. Why would you think that?
The cat is not alive and dead.
It can't be. Like
it can't be both.
It can't be both.
But then it can.
So, yeah. So I guess it goes on to, like, influence the theory that, like, parallel universes or daughter universes exist where there's a version of you that is split by the decision of opening the box versus not.
It seems unrealistic.
And here we are.
That's what he's saying. I gotcha.
So, what does this all mean? Do parallel universes exist? Lots of people think yeah. Some people think no. But the biggest thing is that right now, we don't know.
Yeah.
And the only way we're going to figure it out, so there is an experiment that exists for it where you can get a very large thing that makes particles smash together, which is interesting. And we basically would have to measure the time that existed within the particles smashing together and how much energy was taken from that time. And if we did that, it would confirm the idea of string theory that we are all like kind of in these parallel universes because the matter would bounce out into space outside of the universes, suggesting that we are in this row. If you want to understand that, I think if you listen to the NPR podcast, it would maybe tell you. But apparently we have the ability to figure it out. I don't understand it at all.
Don't put a cat in a box.
Yes. Don't put me in a box. That's the whole experiment. I will escape. And I will destroy everything.
Just like a cat would.
Right? I'm not going to like it. I don't want to be in there. I'm going to mess it up. It's going to be bad for everybody. I don't understand.
Yeah, films. Yeah, films. We watched some films. Now let's talk about those films.
So we watched some things, as we do.
Thanks.
Yes. We watched 2 films. That's what we did.
And generally it's 2.
Yeah.
2 is the normal.
2 things, yes. So the first thing that we watched is Coherence from 2013. If you have not watched this movie, or either movie actually, make sure you watch them before you listen to this episode. You know the rules. But also just
Spoilers.
like, it's a good film.
Yeah, no, we didn't have to save the little tagline that said, oh, this film sucked.
Yeah.
We actually liked them. They were good. They were good films. They were a good time. Totally worth it.
Yeah. Yes. So Coherence is directed by James Ward Burkett. Burkett. Strange things begin to happen when a group of friends gather for a dinner party on an evening when a comet is passing overhead. So that is the basic description, which is like, when I watched it, I didn't really know anything about it the first time. Like, because we watch these things now, like, we kind of know, because it's just like, wait, what is this for? And then we're like, oh, I guess there's going to be, like, time travel or something, you know?
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for it. What I thought was not as long ago as it was. I did not realize it was from 2013 when I was like, this is about a new film. I remember that. Like, we said we wanted to see it, but then I never remember us going to it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was very good.
Yeah.
I was lovely surprised.
Yeah, it is great. It's definitely one of my favorite, like, movies. And it's like, I don't really love sci-fi, which we found from doing this, but I do really love time travel and, like, trippy stuff. Like, that sci-fi I love. I just don't like the action-y, like, their guns and fighting. I don't know. It's just, I'm sorry.
It's okay to be wrong. It's okay.
Ones that are like, you know, where you're like, what's going on? What's real? Am I real? I love those. And it has, this one doesn't have any guns in it. So,
well, there was one.
There was?
Yeah, in the car.
There was a gun?
I'm wrong.
No, she had a ring in the car.
It was a book.
Oh, the book. Yeah, there was no gun.
There's no gun.
False
My
from
bad.
Cat. You're allowed to be wrong too, I guess.
I watched a different movie. I don't know.
Yeah, so when I watched it the first time, I watched it pretty sure by myself, just like, because it's just a film that no one else would watch with me. And I was like, this seems interesting. And I watched it, and then I immediately watched it again after going on this, like, Reddit black hole of, like, what the filmmaker did with it. So, like, how it was made in itself. And then there was all, like, the threads where it's like, this one is this and this one is that. And I was like, what? I gotta watch this again. I immediately, like, in one night, watched it 2 times.
I was thinking, 2013, why wouldn't we watch it? And I was like, oh, we didn't know each other yet. It was like a few years before we even knew each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I just enjoyed, like, all the little Easter eggs and the ways that, like, they were improvising, but also things were very, like, intricately woven in there. And it kind of feels like when you learn about how the making of it is, it feels like one of my favorite things, which is murder mystery parties. And, like, I hosted one of those.
Yes, you did.
At our apartment. And it was fun because everyone got their roles, and then they had to, like, kind of play up that character and act like that person did, and then things would happen through the night that people weren't expecting, or, well, I mean, you know, murder's gonna happen, but, like, how, like, some people know things and some people don't, and blah, blah, blah. And I just, like, I love those things. I am a sucker for those things. So the fact that there's an entire film, like, gave me life.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Like, invigorated me. So essentially, in the making of this, each day, instead of getting a script, these actors were giving a page of notes about their character. So, like, they didn't really have it. They didn't know what was going to happen. This is not scripted in any way. There's actually, like, a 12-page, like,
That's
like,
really
not
cool.
even like a script, like, just like a general, like, outline of what the director wanted to happen that he had been working on for years. And then he just gives these people their scripts. They have no understanding or idea of what the other characters are going to get. And so this was all so they can get this really natural, honest, like, reaction from them. And it was really, like, an exercise in them listening to one another, yes-anding, right? And getting engaged in a mystery, which is really, like, a lot of really funny things happen because of it. So there's, like, an instance where the director says that, he says that, in fact, at one point when 2 of the characters leave and come back to the house and the other actors wouldn't let them in, they were too freaked out. My rule is to not interfere too much if they had an organic instinct. But after 45 minutes of this intense standoff at the door, I finally had to say, guys, you have to let them in, otherwise the story's not going to go. They were so freaked out and just trying to figure out the puzzle, so it naturally led to conflicts and a real heightened sense of tension. But he said that the actors would leave really energized, and they were just, like, on fire from this, like, cool, exciting experience that, like, they didn't know what work was going to be, you know? Like, they didn't know who they were going to be, what it was going to be like.
And you get the, like, high from, like, saying a good joke and knowing it was good, and then, like, seeing how everyone else bounces off. It's like a real cool camaraderie thing. I feel
Yeah.
like when you really vibe well with someone that you have
Yeah.
it back and forth.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And like, you know, as someone who has done improv, like I totally love when you kind of toss an idea out there and someone's like, yeah, and then like they like enforce it, and it isn't just like you just feel like it's legit. And there's some really like nothing is scripted, so there's some really good conversations, and like there are pieces that are obviously like woven in there on purpose, but a lot of it does seem like just genuinely them being their character, which is great.
Yeah.
Like for example of like how things are kind of influenced. There's a part where Kevin, the character Kevin, is trying to leave the house by himself, and M, our main character that we're watching,
Blonde
refuses to let him leave. Like she's like dramatic about it. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you leave. He's just like, what the? So Kevin, or the actor Maury, had received a note that said you need to leave, and she had received a note that said do not let him leave.
Wow.
So it was like them, and then, you know, finally he relented, right? But it was like because that whole scene does feel really desperate. Like she really is like,
yeah.
I can't.
And
Like,
he's so annoyed. He's just like, ugh, you.
yeah.
I want to go outside and get switched. Why do you care so much about it?
Yeah. According to, like, essentially, like, all the things that happen, so, like, there's a blackout, there's knocks on the door, there's all kind of thumps, there's all these things that none of them knew were going to happen. So they all respond very organically.
Yeah.
And according to Emily, the actress, her name is not really Emily, after the first mysterious thumping on the door to nowhere, which is referenced, the actors were both scared and very excited about the story that was unfolding. Of course, we knew we were in good hands, but this is when things got really exciting, because we could see how genius and well-planned everything was. We just didn't have a clue. Some other fun things about it is that it was shot in 5 days. And
Wow.
it was
That's
shot
cool.
chronologically, because they just had to do it, like, they can't spoil it for themselves, so they had to do it in order. And it was in 5 days because the director's wife, like, he wanted to shoot it at his house, and the director's wife was incredibly pregnant and wanted to have a home birth.
Oh, wow.
And so she was like, you can do the film in the house, but it has to be in 5 days, because I'm about to have this baby. And in fact, the scenes where Emily is running around outside, or all of them are running outside, was happening while she was giving birth in the house. so just like so crazy. Right?
Wow.
The actor that plays Amir, his name is Alex, he is a co-writer and was essentially like the mole, and he was there to help like them steer in some way so that the story didn't get too far out of hand. There was only 5 crew members, 2 sound guys, the director of photography, and the director and producer.
Yeah, let's go make movies,
Right?
man.
Yeah.
What?
There's only 2 cameras.
We know 5 people.
Yeah.
Who know how to do camera
That's how
films.
we make every one of our short films.
I know, but like, let's make this
Each
big
short
film.
film has been 3 crew
What
members.
but Gabe, stay with me.
Yeah.
What if longer film
What
now?
if big film? I absolutely agree with you.
Long film? Big film?
The director had given them direction, essentially said, like, you can go anywhere you want, we will follow you. Right? But he said the only hard thing was that he needed to keep everyone quiet, and it was hard because there's so many of them. And there are times when watching it this time with you guys, I was like, it is really loud. Because, like, there are parts where, like, they're all talking over each other because no one has the line, you know? Like, so everyone's just throwing out whatever they can. And I remember being like, this is really noisy. And it really did feel, like, voyeuristic in that way, because it felt like we were watching an actual dinner party because it wasn't so orchestrated. Because it wasn't, I felt like I was just I was at a house party where everyone's talking.
It was funny. Yeah, I remember sitting there being like, I'm kind of stressed.
Right? It was like so much
is happening.
Yeah.
They don't seem like they like each other very much. Why are they friends?
Yeah, why are they doing this? Yeah. So now that I'm done geeking out about how it was made, because that's my favorite part, to be honest. The rest of it is really, really cool. And another reason why I watched it so many times is because there's all these little, like, and I couldn't find the Reddit thread that I had found the first time, because that had, like, the ping pong is this, and blah, 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 and blue and red and all this stuff. So essentially what why this film fits in with this topic is that these are friends who are having dinner, and then there's a comet passing overhead, and it eventually comes to light or dark that now all of these different parallel or other alternate universes are at the same place. They're in this like what are those roundabouts called? Like cul-de-sac. Is the same house. It's the same them, and there's an infinite number of them in other houses. And whenever you go into the black void, which is like the center of the street because the lights go out, it's like a roulette wheel where you just get flung out into some other alternate universe version of your life and your friends, but you don't know. So essentially, pretty much everyone is in a different house, like is in the wrong house by the end of the film.
Except for 2 people, right?
But even still, actually not. Like,
okay.
Yeah, so it gets really, really where you don't know where they're from and how it unfolds is like really fun. But essentially, one of the theories that I found from a Reddit user named Whaaat has this like. He has a few theories. I don't agree with all of them, but some of them. So one of them is that everyone that arrives at the dinner party at different times are from their own different dimensions. Like, he states that it happens before the lights go out. Because, like, comet stuff is already happening.
Yeah.
Like, because of, like, the phones breaking and all that happened before the dinner party. But reasoning behind it is that he says because there's these conversations in the movie right from the beginning that don't add up. So, like, for one, when Mike, the character Mike, who is played by the actor, I'm totally blanking on his name right now, who actually plays, what's his name, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
States that he was in a show called Roswell. Which, the fact that he's saying he's in the show Roswell for a long time and was a regular is actually a joke to the audience that we are in a different universe from them.
Yeah.
Because he's from Buffy. So it's like... Anyway, so he says, like, I was on Roswell forever. And Lori, who says she loves the show and is, like, a diehard fan, says she's never seen him on the show. So, like, right from the beginning, it's like, does she have a bad memory? Or does she come from the world where he did not go on that show?
Yeah.
Or maybe where he's on Buffy.
Yeah.
Right? Mike also comments about her yoga, Lori's yoga, and she denies it. And she mentions
like, I don't do yoga.
And you said this when she's in the hallway with Kevin later in the film. She's mentioning how, like, oh, I had to do yoga. And it was like... This different Lori.
Yeah, who did do yoga.
So he didn't misremember. So there's all this stuff where people are like misremembering things or like things aren't adding up. And it's because they're actually all from different dimensions already. Like it's already messy, right?
Yeah, I think like the first phone call, I would agree. That's like when it began because they got disconnected. She's arriving. He arrives separate.
Everyone who came, and they all came at different times. So it's like, I would argue that Lee and Mike were the right couple at the beginning. But then Mike left pretty early. Yeah. So no one is with who they're supposed to be with. Anyway, every decision creates a new reality and is not only because they walk through the dark. So this user says that the main idea that people have is that you have to walk into the darkness and then you get spit out in a different one. But he's saying like every single time, like there are moments in the story that are also like the void. So there are times when there's a blackout or there's like darkness for long periods of time. And you'll see it all go, there's like these rules to the film actually. And so like it all like fits in together. So it's also like decisions that are made also cause rifts and things to change, which kind of brings us to our next film when we talk about it. But so then the other thing is the ending. So again, spoilers. There's this big thing where throughout the whole thing, there is this similar to, unfortunately, Midsummer, where the whole thing was a breakup, right? That's what this film is, really. And so from the very beginning, the first conversation that Em has with Kevin, he says, like, we need to talk. And then they keep saying things like their picture is cut in the middle. She keeps saying, like, I'm losing you on the phone. She said, I'm losing you. Or I can't let you leave. from the door. Like, she keeps reiterating all of these phrases that are essentially like, I'm holding on to this relationship that you don't care about anymore.
Yeah.
And then also, similar to Mr. Nobody, which we'll get into, she has not made a decision to go with him for a month or to stay and pursue her career, whatever it is. And he even says, like, at some point, indecision is just a no. And she's like, I need more time. So her indecision is also like spurring out all these different possibilities, right? So that decision is why there's so many different M's out there. So in the end, she gives up on this trash Kevin in her trash relationship and decides to go pursue a good Kevin, because she knows that because this decision exists, there is a dimension or universe where she has said yes and where they're good. Because she met one of them, right? So then she goes and looks, and she ends up finding a good Kevin, and then she, like, fights the good M, and, like, she drugs her, puts her in the car, then NM, possibly that one, could be anyone, tries to come back, and she bashes her in the head and then hides her in the tub. But whoever that was, before they disappeared into whatever in the morning, left a voicemail for good Kevin explaining that this is bad M. So it's like this, So at the end, you're like, oh no, she's in trouble.
The woman you've loved.
Yeah, but it's like, but it is.
It is at the same time.
Yeah.
She just wasn't sure, and now she decided she is by murdering the woman you love. It's fine.
And now she can be the woman you love.
Yeah, it's totally the same.
Yeah, So another thing that I think is funny about the Schrodinger's cat thing is, in the story, their explanation for what's happening is that they find a book on, like, quantum physics that's, super helpful during this time, and it mentions the Schrodinger's cat thing, or mentions, like, the whole thing, and so they spiral out, and they're like, this has to be the answer, that we're
every
alive
time they
and
leave
dead.
the house, and then
So they have this whole thing, and the director actually said that he thought it would be really funny because he was thinking of it as like a what is the trippy show? I'm saying
Twilight Zone.
That in the middle of the Twilight Zone episodes, they're always like very like, this is what is happening, like, conversation essentially, where there's like the big reveal. It's like, we explain everything. So he was like, it would be funny if they did that, and then it really wasn't the explanation, and that's the case. He says, like, that's just what they clung to, and they're completely wrong. And they were just like, yeah, this is it. This is our answer.
Don't let them have the book.
Yeah.
They'll have the secrets.
It's pretty cool to see, like, the different versions of them, and, like, Mike's character is pretty great, and, like, how triggering he is. Their ideas to number themselves randomly with the Yahtzee dice, and then use a random object in a box. Like, I would have never thought to do that, and I thought that was really cool.
It was cool, yeah.
So it's like, what is this?
It was a good time. It was a good film.
Yeah, it is super good. But we watched another thing.
We did. We watched Mr. Nobody from 2009. Director Jocko von Dormiel. A boy stands on a station platform as a train is about to leave. Should he go with his mother or stay with his father? Infinite possibilities arise from this decision. As long as he doesn't choose, anything is possible. Yeah. So, like, rude. That thing that the parents did.
Yeah.
Really rude. You can't put that on a little kid. That's, like, it's not okay.
Yeah. So Mr. Nobody is a pretty beautiful film. It's a little trippy because it's kind of hard to follow. It's very long. It's very hard to follow. And so it does take a lot to, like, but you get the gist. I think if you're watching, you get the gist. And so essentially what we have is Nemo Nobody, who's our main character, Jared Leto, who is, when we're seeing him, he's like this old man, and then he reveals that he has the wherewithal to know that he's lived all these different lives. That he has lived sufficiently through every single option. At the same time. And so
his face boops is not
his face boop. Yeah. So I'll explain what that means. So essentially, because there's a scene where Nemo, as a young boy, explains that before you're born, you know everything.
Mm.
And right before you're born, there's an angel that comes and tells you, like, takes away that knowledge or shushes you and, like, pushes your mouth, which is why you have that little indent imprint on your mouth. And that is like you being silenced and you forget everything that you knew, which was everything. Except they forgot Nemo. And so they forgot to do it to him. So he knows everything. And even like as he's going in some of the stories, he like remembers or predicts the future because all the times are happening at the same time. He knows what's going to happen. And so he is able to live and remember each one of these lives because he is different. Yeah. And so as an old man, he's reflecting back and, you know, everyone's like, which one is it? Who are you? What is this? And he's like, I'm Nemo Nobody. I am all of them. And so he essentially, being someone who can remember everything and live everything, is the Schrodinger's cat. Yeah. He lives in a world of indecision because he's in this state of like he didn't make the decision to go with his parents, or he did, right? Yeah. He both did and didn't. He exists both alive and dead. Like in some instances, he dies as a child. Some is a young adult. Some of them he's older. Like, yeah, he is essentially the cat because he's stuck between his mother and father. And so as he lives through each life decision, his choices are smaller and smaller. Like he gets less and less amount of options to pursue because that's just how life works. Yeah. Like when you're young, there's infinite amounts of possibilities.
Then you hit 30 and you just made a bunch. You gotta do what you got with what you have.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I got 3 roads now. I used to have 20.
My hair looks like this. It's gonna for now. I chose red at 15 and now red is always. Yeah. I can't be other colored hair. It's just fine. Yeah.
And so there's even like a part where one of the lives he chooses is so against the realm of possibility. Like he chooses to like never leave anything up to chance. He will make every decision. He will be rich. He will have a pool. He will be married to the first person he dances with at the dance, blah, 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 blah. And so he does that in one of the worlds, and he ends up married to Jean, and he is suicidal because now his life is meaningless. Yeah. He doesn't have any choices, right? And so he ends up doing this crazy thing where he starts like two-facing it, where he flips a coin to do decisions because he's stopped making decisions. Yeah. He says, no more, I'm going to let this make decisions, and it results in his death.
He does that and Yes Man. It's like a combination of those two things.
Yeah. And so there's a lot in this film that are pretty interesting, but there's this quote that I think really ties it all together, which is, every path is the right path. Everything could have been anything else, and it would have just as much meaning. So essentially it's like he, as this young 9-year-old boy who's trying to choose between his divorced parents if he wants to live with his dad or his mom, he's like, which is the answer? What is the best route? And he's like, I've lived all of them and they're all right. Yeah. Like every single one of them is correct. If I choose any one of them, it is correct, which is why he still can't choose. Yeah. Because now it's like he doesn't have like an answer, right? So essentially, like, no life is better. They're just different. Yeah. You know, and so, I mean, some sucked more than others, but I think like they all just had varying degrees, and it's all about like, if you lived that life, those things suck as hard as they're gonna suck. Yeah. Right? Versus like, if you live that other life, those things are gonna suck. Like you aren't living your life this way, looking at that life thinking that one sucks. Like you can't because you're in your lens. Different. Yeah. So, essentially, because he doesn't make this choice, he's all that. I think there's I went down this like rabbit hole of all these different like papers that people wrote about Mr. Nobody in relating to philosophy, and it was really fun. And I found some really interesting tidbits, and then went and looked for my own stuff. And essentially, like, we had found it really interesting that in the film, when Nemo chooses to be with his dad, he ends up being really sweet. Mm-hmm. Not to say, like, when he's with his mom, he isn't sweet, but he's, like, exceptionally, like, nauseatingly sweet, too, like, in some ways.
Very passive, very much, like, just take in whatever life throws at him, because
Also, he's he takes care of.
Yeah, he's just generally more caring for people
compassionate.
he cares about. Yeah.
Whereas with his mom, he's mad at her, and so he becomes spiteful.
Much more angst.
Yeah, much more angst. So we have these two Nemos based on his reality, which bring so when you leave behind this whole thing of choice, what is choice, blah blah blah. There's a philosopher, Thomas Nagel, who essentially believes in what he calls the absurd, which is essentially that we don't really have choices in the way that we think we have choices, and that all of our decisions and choices are determined by arbitrary cultural factors. So we could have infinite amount, but we're actually limited because of where we are and who we are in the world around us. So it's it's not really infinite. It's really actually quite limited. And so the choice between his mother and his father is almost chosen for him, because the choice is really an illusion. Yeah.
Well, because he has to pick one, right?
Yeah. And it's he's going to pick the one that makes sense for that world. He doesn't really, it's not this crazy infinite nothing matters choice.
Yeah, I'd say he never picks his dad, because his shoelace breaks. He always just runs for mom.
Yeah. But I mean, he's a little boy, and I feel you don't, and she was always there. I think the way she turned out was very interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of sad. I think something that's cool is some of the symbolism in the film is color is a big thing. So we have the separation of the different women he ends up with, and he sees them as young girls. Jean is in a yellow dress, Elise is in a blue dress, and Anna is in red. So yellow is the color of life and wealth, and when he's with Jean, he ends up rich and famous, or not, well, rich and wealthy and whatever.
Yeah.
Elise is emotional, and so blue is all of that of despair and depression and sadness a lot of times, and then red, the color of love for Anna.
Yeah.
So and those things come through all the time. But another thing that keeps popping up is water. And so he comes to an end from water quite a lot.
That's usually how he dies, yeah.
So Elise has her meltdown in the middle of their suburban world while it's downpouring, and she says she's drowning or whatever, and he says something our family will learn to swim.
Yeah.
His whole fact that he can't swim is this thing that's recurring throughout, and it's he jumps in the pool, tries to kill himself in Jean. He jumps in the pool in the beginning to replicate Anna. That's where he first saw her, was in the pool.
Yeah.
Anna asked him to swim, and he either insults her or he admits what he's doing. Yeah. So, and then also him meeting her at the lighthouse where there's water, them picking up the water in pieces from the helicopter.
Yeah.
It's just through there, and water is always this transition. It could be something that's emotional. It's something that's torrid and uncontrollable. There's a lot that goes into what water means. So there's a lot of that. But I think really what it is about is that whatever life you live is the life that you're supposed to live. And, as we make choices, we have less and less choices. But the truth is we didn't really have any choices to begin with. And you just know that whatever you're doing is correct.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the whole other universes or simulated reality versus not. Either one, whatever your life is, that's your life. You don't just get to pick new life now.
Yeah, and even if you were in this other life, you wouldn't know. The grass is always greener on the other side until you're on the other side, and that's just the grass you've always had.
Yeah.
And then it's nothing. So it's really all just perspective. It just seems like it's better, but if you were there, it wouldn't be any different from what you're doing. And I think that's what Mr. Nobody is saying.
Okay, but what if,
okay,
hypothetically speaking, our universe has mutant zombies.
Okay.
And then we find out there's a universe that, has a plague or whatever, pandemic time.
Yeah.
But that's not mutant zombies. I didn't see my best friends and family members get eaten by mutant zombies in the universe that has COVID-19. So
So
like,
mayhaps we
mayhaps.
live there now.
Yeah.
Feelings. Yeah, feelings. Yeah, I said feelings.
So if you like it, it's every path is the right path, because that is the path that you're walking. And it's no more wrong or less wrong than the path you didn't. And
It's
if
where
you
you're supposed
don't
to
like
be.
it,
It's, as told by Ginger, someone once told me the grass is much greener on the other side.
I remember that. The
Dun, 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 dun.
song I remember from that is I'm a little seal girl living in a real world. Remember
Yeah,
that?
I do.
That's all I remember.
I loved As Told by Ginger.
I've really
I related to Seal Girl
I
very much.
related to Ginger. Checks out.
Yeah.
So on the topic of parallel universes, universi,
Yeah.
how do you feel? Yeah.
I think my path is the right path. I think I just gotta go it. Just live. I think it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that there's a me who's lived different lives. I think they all have narcolepsy. But, maybe there's the hypothetical scenario where, I don't know, I don't.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. I'd like to not have asthma. If we're picking illnesses that I suddenly don't have,
Yeah.
asthma,
Yes.
narcolepsy is just, we're fine, let's let it be. Then that's it. Just get rid of asthma. That'd be a nice time. But I'm fine with the path that I'm walking now. I'm very happy with my life.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, this one is good. I mean, the one I've always had.
Yeah, it's like we're not taking other people's lives. It's totally fine. And they say the grass is always greener, but it's all the same grass. We're all here.
Yeah, this grass is definitely green and not blue. Why would it be blue?
That's weird. I don't know. I'm just happy there's not ravenous werewolf people outside. I just don't want that.
Yeah, totally normal thing to be thankful for. Yeah.
COVID-19, I mean, I know it sucks, but
it's not ravenous werewolves.
Yeah, we don't want those
that
werewolves.
we know about. Yeah, I agree. I think parallel universe. I'm always for just like living a life you get, because it's who you are. Like, you would be different.
Yeah.
Like, he was different. He was always different, and so it's like, I mean, yeah. I guess some people don't like themselves, but I like ourselves.
I like ourselves too.
So, what about for the films?
The films are dope. I like my lives.
Yeah, every path is the right path.
Yeah, every path is the right path.
These films are great. I mean, Mr. Nobody's long.
I'm laughing at hypothetical.
Okay. What's going on?
I just thought it'd be really funny.
Yeah.
If at the end, we tweaked our thing we say. It's not even good, but I thought it was funny, so that's why I
What is it? Oh, you have to share it.
Don't get married. They'll beat your kids instead of eat them. And that's for some reason just what we've always said. I'm literally crying.
You can just say you'll eat your kids.
I don't know. I just thought it was really funny, the possibility of a different tagline.
Okay. Well,
It's just really nice here, like I just want to stay. So it's really a great life we have.
okay. It's good. Yeah, I like the movies.
I'm glad you like them.
I love Coherence, and
Happy
I
we're
really,
friends.
even if you like, yeah, I hope you watched it before you listen or watch, because
Yeah.
it's just so good, and it's good if you don't know what's happening, and then you read about it later, and you're like, they did what? How that? What? And then
It's
you're
just really
excited.
well done.
Yeah. So I love it. I love this series. I think we're having a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
remember to like subscribe and like us, please.
I wonder if there's a universe where we're famous.
That's this one, just it's a little time.
Well, much in the future.
Yeah, that's
We'll
all.
skip.
Yeah. All right. Well, don't get married. They'll beat your kids.
It's not better. They'll eat them. They'll take them to school.
On.
They'll leave them at the train and make them choose between mom
Don't
or
get
dad.
married. You'll have to tell the kid to figure it out.
Yeah.
What an awful choice.
How do you make that kid run for the train?
It's like a dog when you're like you both want the dog, or New Girl with
Bathtub?
No.
Winston? No?
with Ferguson.
Oh,
And
Ferguson.
the lady, and they were like, "Come over here, Ferguson," and they have like treats in her pocket.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you can't do that to a child.
Yeah.
You can't
Don't
be
make
like,
the child
Which
pick.
parents do you love more? And
Yeah.
like, and also not in that moment. Like, you didn't talk about this beforehand. He doesn't have a suitcase. I was like, you already made the decision for him. Clearly.
Whatever life you chose, you either get to keep your clothes or buy all new ones. And that's why he's angsty.
That's why he ran so far.
They're in New York and all he has is
dumb.
angsty
There's way
teen
too many
clothes.
things to consider, and why couldn't he have both? Why'd you have to go so far? I don't
It's very
understand.
much just like Parent Trappy of like, oh, you just never see them again. Your other parent doesn't exist once
And then
we get
he's,
on
like,
this
hurt.
train.
Like he is sick or something, so it's like what, he was there all alone by himself after that?
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, well, that's enough.
Thanks
Let's
for
go.
the time.
We gotta go put away our werewolf gear.
No.
I mean, put on our masks.
Masks. We go upstairs. We can't go outside. Not for werewolves, but because
Germs.
air and people.
Gotcha.